Good morning, and thanks for tuning in to Welcome to Atlanta, a show about living in Atlanta and purchasing a home here. Welcome to Atlanta is hosted by Lou Whelan, and each week, Lou will talk with experts who know this ever-changing city and its real estate industry. Interviews will include mayors, community leaders, and residential real estate experts. Now, here's Lou Whelan with this week's Welcome to Atlanta show.
Good morning and welcome to our show. Welcome to Atlanta. My name is Lou Whelan, and we have this great opportunity to be with you this morning and talk about the great city of Sandy Springs. My company has published the official relocation guides for the first multiple listing service for almost 20 years, and we've just recently launched this radio program whereby we interview mayors and other key leaders of the various communities, along with one of the CEOs or leading leaders in one of the largest real estate brokerage firms in each community that we interview. So today we have the great honor of having as our guest three distinguished people who know a great deal about this great city of Sandy Springs. We have the mayor, the director of communications and public relations, and the senior vice president of one of the largest and most distinguished real estate brokerage firms. Mayor Eva Galambos.
That's me.
Welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here.
And Sharon Crown, welcome to the show. Mark Hall. Mark Hall of Atlanta Communities, welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's great to have you all. Just by way of background, the mayor has lived in Sandy Springs for almost 50 years. I think she knows her way around. She is a retired economist specializing in urban affairs and labor economics. She has a PhD, and she has served as an arbitrator resolving disputes between labor and management. She was president of the Committee for Sandy Springs from 1975 to 2005, leading the effort to incorporate Sandy Springs as a city. She's co-founder and former secretary of Sandy Springs Revitalization, founder of Sandy Springs Clean and Beautiful, chairwoman of Services Committee for Sandy Springs Council of Neighborhoods, former chairman of the Fulton County Public Housing Authority, and founder of Sandy Springs Civic Roundtable. Ms. Galambos has a PhD in economics, as I mentioned, from Georgia State University. She holds a master's degree in labor and industrial relations from the University of Illinois and a bachelor in business administration from the University of Georgia. She is married, has 3 children and 6 grandchildren, and resides in the Bentwater area. Again, welcome, Mayor Galambos. Great to have you.
Good to be here.
And we have Sharon Crown, Director of Communications and Public Relations for the great city of Sandy Springs.
Good morning.
And Mark, Senior Vice President of Atlanta Communities, and which was launched in a real estate brokerage firm, launched in 1997. When they chose to not renew a lease with one of the other larger, more established real estate brokerage firms. Is that correct?
Actually, 2009.
2009.
Yeah, we were with the franchise as a franchise operator for 20 years prior to that.
Okay.
And we have that has to remain unspoken.
Unspoken. Unspoken it will be. I have no problem with that. He is a member of the Cobb Association of Realtors, the Georgia Association of Realtors, the National Association of Realtors. He is a licensed broker in Georgia, an ePro certified internet professional, trainer, and coach. The Atlanta Communities has 4 offices: East Cobb, which is where their corporate headquarters is located, Sandy Springs, Dunwoody, In-Town, and West Cobb, Paulding. And they have a total of 345 realtors and associate brokers, and Mark is the managing broker. Again, welcome.
Thank you.
Great to have all of you. What a distinguished group of experts. So the city of Sandy Springs won their independence after a long fight, I understand, and it was won in December of 2005. The city consists of 39 square miles with a population of roughly 100,000. It's the second largest city in the metropolitan area, the sixth largest in the state, has achieved a 10% population growth since 2000. The median age of the residents is 33, median household income 129,000. There are 8,000 businesses, and there are more Fortune 500 companies in Sandy Springs than anywhere in the state of Georgia. Sandy Springs is proud to say they are fiscally sound with no long-term liabilities, and of course this is quite an interesting feat in these economic times. Forbes.com ranked them one of the top 25 in the category of towns to live well. They were ranked one of 6 winners in the American City and Country's 2010 Annual Excellence Awards. Tennis Magazine said that their tennis center is one of the finest public facilities in the country. AOL said it's the safest community in the metropolitan area, and they are the 9th most affluent U.S. community, according to Portfolio.com. So, Mayor, where do we go from here? Give us a little background history on the city first, before we go into some of your visions for the future and so forth.
We were a suburb of Atlanta for many, many years, aspiring to become our own city so we could have local control, especially to gain local control over our land use, so that we could monitor the quality of life in our community. It took us a while to get the legislature to allow us to have a referendum. In Georgia, you have to have a referendum of the people before you can begin a new city. We had the referendum in 2005, after a 30-year battle in the legislature. And we won that referendum with 92% affirmative vote. The people were thrilled to have their own city. And since then, we have just flourished. Our tax rate is exactly the same as it was before we became a city. Our tax rate is controlled in our charter. We will never be raising our tax rate unless the people vote and tell us to raise it, which is highly unlikely.
Well, that's quite a fascinating background. Sharon, tell us a little bit about, I've read on the website that outsourcing is a critical element in the new organization structure. Tell us a little bit about how that works.
Right. All of our public safety, our police and fire, our city employees. But when you get to public works, IT, communications, community development, those are all outsourced. So there are 7 different companies that provide services for the city of Sandy Springs. In communications, there's a Boston-based company that hired and runs the communications division. So I have 2 masters. I work for the city of Sandy Springs, and I also have a corporate company that I report to.
Mark, how do you, as a person who's obviously quite knowledgeable about the area, what kind of feedback do you get from home buyers and real estate agents about the new organization structure of Sandy Springs?
Well, I think that people around the metro area, as well as cities across the country, are looking at Sandy Springs to see how well it's run compared to how inefficiently their cities are run. And I think that then translates into people saying, wow, maybe I should live in Sandy Springs. So I think it really has helped boost the city's image across Georgia, but equally maybe across the country as well. I mean, lots of people look towards Sandy Springs to see how a city can be run efficiently, and I think it makes a big difference.
Well, one factor is that I noted on your website is that you have no long-term liabilities as a result of pensions and so forth and so on with a large bureaucracy.
We were very careful when we began the city to not encumber ourselves with what would be debts for the future generation. We also have a policy of rebidding the contracts so that competition keeps entering into the whole situation. And all the contracts were rebid this past year. Competition works. And we're saving $7 million this year because of rebidding the contract.
Well, congratulations. I noticed another thing. I can't remember if it was on the website or someplace else, that everybody in Sandy Springs seems to be very happy with the new organization. In fact, the mayor was reelected by the highest margin, and I've ever heard of. 84% of the residents voted to have her continue on as mayor. So they must be pretty pleased with the way things are going.
We did a survey of our residents, and we received tremendous accolades. People really responded that they were happy with all the services. Occasionally they had some comments about traffic, but who doesn't have traffic problems in the Atlanta area?
We'll be right back on that note to talk about the efficient traffic in Sandy Springs. We will be right back with this exciting interview with experts on the great city of Sandy Springs. We are back here talking with the great mayor of this great city of Sandy Springs, Mayor Galambos, and the Director of Marketing and Public Relations and Communications, Sharon Crown, and Mark Hall, the Vice President of Atlanta Communities. We're talking about this Sandy Springs. And during the break, the mayor suggested that we talk about one of her favorite topics, which is the communities in Sandy Springs.
We have a very interesting mix of fabulous neighborhoods with probably the biggest tree canopy of the whole Atlanta area. We preserve our lots with the trees. We probably have the lowest density in neighborhood housing of any urban communities. On the other hand, you can just go a mile or so and you're at the Fortune 500 high-rises, the office towers. So it's an interesting combination of places to work with great talent and wonderful neighborhoods with high values.
Yes, I have been noticed that. Mark, what do you get a lot of people complimenting Sandy Springs on the neighborhoods and the communities that constitute this great city?
Absolutely. The diversity that they have in terms of live, work, and play makes a big difference in how the community flows, why people want to relocate and be a part of Sandy Springs, and the fact that it makes it interesting because people that live in Sandy Springs also tend to work in Sandy Springs, which makes it in some respects unique in Atlanta.
And there are a lot of places to work in Sandy Springs for 8,000 businesses.
We have the largest health services concentration in the Atlanta area. 3 major hospitals with all the associated services that go with that. That's a huge employment center of highly skilled people.
Certainly any discussion of Sandy Springs has to include a mention of Northside Hospital, which is just a fabulous...
Northside, St. Joseph's, and Children's Healthcare.
All three.
All three right there together.
Premier.
And Emory. We mustn't forget Emory. There's a hospital there too now. So it's growing and very, very successful.
Now, before we get into the other elements, like we'll be talking about schools and parks and other programs, but we would like to talk about the state of the real estate market itself. And by the way, if you are just tuning into the show, you can hear this entire program on our website, welcometoatlanta.net, which is the first multiple listing service of Atlanta website. This program can be heard in its entirety on the show and will be available until the next time we have an opportunity to interview the mayor. But Mark, would you tell us a little bit about what's happening with the residential real estate market?
Well, overall, the picture for 2012 is much improved. How long it'll last, only time will tell. But there is an uptick in the market, and it's definitely felt by everybody. And I think that part of it's driven by pent-up demand. And I also think that a lot of people are now decidedly tired of being tired, and that they're ready to come out and get back to life, kind of quote unquote as we knew it, and that's causing the real estate market to rebound some. And I think people are just ready to go. That there are a lot of people who've been delaying making decisions to purchase. A lot of people have been delaying decisions to sell, and I think all those factors are coming together now to make at least the beginnings of a robust spring.
We certainly saw that happening with the auto industry, where I understand Chrysler sales were up 40%, and Ford was up, and General Motors everybody was up because of this pent-up demand, and the economy has definitely hit bottom, and we are definitely on the uptick. Most everyone seems to agree with that, particularly in Sandy Springs.
The amount of revenue that we're getting in permits, which of course is an indicator of construction, the permit numbers are up, so we definitely are seeing more construction of new homes.
Well, that's a very nice to hear. That's obviously key fact that is promoting that theory that things are definitely on the uptick and the economy is improving, and auto sales, and just so many signs. So if you're thinking about buying a house, now's the time, because prices are going to be rising. Do not wait if you're thinking about it, because this is the time. Let's talk a little bit about the schools in Sandy Springs. Mayor, how would you describe the education system?
We are blessed with very, very good schools. We have a very fine public education system, and we're augmented with probably the finest accumulation of private schools in the metro area. The public school system is arranged in two clusters that lead up to two high schools. One is Riverwood High School, which has the International Baccalaureate program, which is a very, very well-defined academic program. And the other one is North Springs High School. Both high schools every year obtain all kind of prizes and ratings as being among the top schools in the state and in the country. And then we have a huge array of private schools. So people have a choice of where they want their children to go, and they're gravitating to Sandy Springs because of the fine schools.
Right, and at North Springs, they're one of the only dual magnet schools in the state. They have a math and science and then an arts magnet, and both Riverwood and North Springs were recently recognized for their AP courses, their advanced placement courses, where the students take these courses and can gain college credit.
My son actually took advantage of that. My son grew up with a guy named Brett Baer, and from Sandy Springs, went to Marist, and one of our local celebrities on Fox, the White House correspondent to the Fox's White House correspondent, and I proudly grew up in Sandy Springs. I noticed on your website there are 11 private schools, 2 middle schools, and 7 elementary schools. So we certainly are well served in that area. Also, according to the website, there are 11 parks and green spaces, 1.5 miles of walking trails. Tell us a little bit about the parks.
Well, first of all, if you're not familiar with Sandy Springs, we are bounded on 2 sides by the Chattahoochee River, which is a wonderful, wonderful recreational opportunity. The river has parks along the side of it where you can put boats into the river, or you can walk trails along the river. So everyone who moves to Sandy Springs becomes aware of that as a fabulous amenity. Then we have parks with recreation programs, lots of sports for the young people, huge variety of gymnastics, we probably have the strongest gymnastics program in the state of Georgia. And it keeps growing every year. We just had an international competition where gymnasts came performing, and they were from Ukraine and Russia, which are where the finest gymnasts are trained.
You're listening to Welcome to Atlanta. The entire show can be heard on the website, welcometoatlanta.net. We are approaching the time for a commercial break. When we get back, we're going to get some feedback from our real estate expert on the parks and the schools in terms of how potential home buyers regard these particular aspects of life in Sandy Springs. We will be right back after the commercial break. Welcome back. You're listening to Welcome to Atlanta. We're delighted to have as our distinguished guest today the great mayor of the great city of Sandy Springs, the director of communications and public relations, and one of the experts in the real estate business in Sandy Springs who works with Atlanta communities, Mark Hall. And Mark, tell us a little bit. You just heard the mayor talk a little bit about how great the schools and parks are. What kind of feedback do you get from potential homebuyers about those aspects of the city?
Well, for people that have school-age children, obviously schools are very important, and it starts at a very early age, obviously in kindergarten, but people even who don't have children are concerned about schools because of how it affects resale value. And it is one of the most important factors. And if you look at the numbers around Atlanta in terms of declining house values, you'll find very quickly there is a correlation between poor performing schools and housing values compared to great performing schools, and how that affects value as well. So it's a really important part of the equation when looking to buy a house or to relocate and to move to Sandy Springs.
Thank you. And so, Mayor, what I know I can see in your eye that you're pretty proud of the parks. What's your favorite park?
Well, we have a jewel that was opened about a year ago. It's called Overlook Park. And it's interesting because it was just a raw piece of land, and we determined that we would clear the underbrush and we would develop a dog park. Well, we cleared the underbrush, and all of a sudden we had the most beautiful vista of the Chattahoochee River, and it's like being in the North Georgia mountains. So we decided this was too beautiful for dogs, and it became a jewel, and it has, I think, something like 50 parking places, and on a pretty day, it is always full. It has the most imaginative playground that I have ever seen, and the kids are all begging, "Mama, can we go to Overlook? Can we go to Overlook?" They all are gravitating towards that park.
Yeah, I noticed on the website that you received a designation as a National Water Trail by the Department of Interior. What does that mean exactly?
It means that we have these wonderful trails along the Chattahoochee River, and this is an amenity so that you can walk as though you were in the Northwest, but in effect you're in the middle of a metropolitan area, but you're surrounded by nature, the river, the birds, the geese, and the trails that connect with each other. And so the designation of this new title of National Trails will mean that we may get some more federal money to connect more trails and to develop more trails. It's a wonderful place for people on a weekend to go, where can I go walk and enjoy nature and get back to where it's really quiet.
Sounds fantastic. So, Mark, how many agents do you have in the Sandy Springs community of all your 4 offices, roughly?
We have approximately 80 realtors and associate brokers in Sandy Springs, and it's interesting that when we opened our Sandy Springs office, which was last summer, so summer of 2011, we had to open it. And by that I mean that people that live and also work and serve the real estate community in Sandy Springs wanted a location in Sandy Springs, specifically so that they could be near the people that they served. And that's just kind of unique. We're 2 blocks outside of 285, right on Roswell Road, and it's the reason we're there is because the people that we serve wanted us there, and so that's why we're there in Sandy Springs.
Certainly a very convenient location.
I'd like to add that one of the other facets of Sandy Springs is our diversity. And we have tremendous representation of various international groups. And we just entertained the ambassador from India at a lunch in Sandy Springs on Friday. We have a huge contingent of population from India. We also have a friendship city in China. We're getting ready to have international exchange of students from our China sister city, and our students will go visit our sister city in China.
That's pretty exciting. I'm sure you're very proud of that.
Well, I think that international trade is one of the huge objectives to improve our economy. And so I'm very emphatic about promoting anything that will help us bring in more people from other countries.
Okay, well, I'm getting the high sign from our producer. We are approaching the commercial break. When we get back, I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the various programs, and they certainly do have plenty of programs. If you missed any part of the program, you can hear it on our website, welcometoatlanta.net, where you can hear the entire show. We'll be right back following the break. Welcome back. You're listening to Welcome to Atlanta. Our program is also available to hear on the website, welcometoatlanta.net. We're sitting here with the great mayor of the city of Sandy Springs, the director of public relations and communications, and the senior VP of one of the largest and most prestigious real estate brokerage firms, Atlanta Communities, Mark Hall. Now, during the break, we talked a little bit about some of the many programs that are offered in Sandy Springs. Those include the Neighborhood Council, the Business Expo, Sandy Springs Conservatory, Heritage Sandy Springs, Leadership Sandy Springs, Friends of Sandy Springs, Sandy Springs Civic Roundtable, Sandy Springs Society, and last but not least, the Senior Center. So, Mayor, it's a lot to talk about in 7 minutes. How would you, what are some of your favorite programs, and why have they been so successful?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that we welcome everybody participating, and that's why we have so many organizations and so many programs, because it's a way for everybody to get involved in some way that interests their particular strengths. The Sandy Springs Festival is probably the most important annual event. It goes for 2 or 3 days, and with craft shows and entertainment for the children, and what you have in a fall festival, everything except rides. Now, there's a lot of entertainment with little animals for the children, and it brings out thousands of people for wonderful camaraderie. So that will be in September. I urge everybody to look forward to the Sandy Springs Festival. Something else that's noteworthy in Sandy Springs is that we have one of the 3 official Anne Frank exhibits of the world. And, of course, the main Anne Frank exhibit is in Amsterdam. But there are 3 in the United States, and we have one of them. And it is a wonderful way for people to come and understand how easily prejudice and racial hate can destroy civilization. And the exhibit draws hundreds of school children that come from all over the state, also adults. So that's a very noteworthy program. Arts are very strong in Sandy Springs. We have an organization called Arts Sandy Springs, and they are particularly fostering sculptures that will be climbing toys for the children. the children will be able to climb in and out of these sculptures. They will be located in one of our parks this coming fall. So we think that'll be a huge art attraction for the community, and people who are interested in the arts, a lot of venues to get involved.
Mark, what do you must get a lot of favorable feedback about all the programs available in Sandy Springs. I don't know of any other community that has so many different opportunities.
I think you said it exactly right. I think what it does is foster a great sense of community among the residents, but also among the people that do business in Sandy Springs and the people that work in Sandy Springs. So the end result is that you have a great sense of community amongst all the people that either live or work in Sandy Springs, and that makes it kind of one of the metro area's most unique cities when it comes to how inclusive they are and the fact that people come together.
Yeah, I would imagine that would be the case. What is Heritage Sandy Springs? I noticed that's on the website that looked pretty intriguing.
Heritage Sandy Springs was founded to put emphasis on the historical aspect of Sandy Springs. It began with saving the springs. We actually have the original springs where the water comes out of the ground, which is where the Indian tribes would exchange and trade because there was water. And then when the settlers came to North Georgia, they too enjoyed these springs, and it became a campground where they had religious organization in the summertime. And that's the origin of Sandy Springs. So Heritage Sandy Springs is engaged in historic preservation and has done a tremendous job of bringing back to us some of the memories of what our founders brought to this area.
This Sandy Springs Civic Roundtable has something to do with economics, or?
Well, actually, I think the Sandy Springs Civic Roundtable is kind of morphed into the Sandy Springs Chamber. The Sandy Springs Chamber of Commerce is a very dynamic organization. It's growing by leaps and bounds, and of course, economic development is its main priority, but it also interacts with the community in order to improve all facets of our lives.
Well, our show is every other week. My partner in the show does interviews with CEOs of the chambers of commerce, and his background is business and finance from the Wharton School. So I'll extend an invitation at this point to have him or her come maybe on the next show or soon and be interviewed about the
I'm sure
financial.
The president of the chamber would be delighted to come. His name is Rusty Paul. He's very familiar to this whole area.
Great. Well, we'll definitely extend an invitation to have him on the show next week or the week after, whenever he's available, because that is obviously an integral part of the whole equation.
We work very closely with the Chamber of Commerce. We also work very closely with the Perimeter Improvement District. Of course, the perimeter area is partially in Sandy Springs and partially in our neighboring city of Dunwoody. And that's where all the high-rise buildings are. And so that's an important component of our community.
We're going to be right back, and we're going to wind up with a... you're listening to Welcome to Atlanta, and the site, again, this whole interview is on the website, welcometoatlanta.net. When we come back, we're going to talk briefly about the Senior Center, since that's such a growing segment of the population. And then we're going to hear from the mayor's own words exactly where the city of Sandy Springs is going. What is her vision for the future? We'll be right back after the break. You are listening to Welcome to Atlanta. Welcome back. You're listening to Welcome to Atlanta. We're sitting here with the mayor of Sandy Springs, Mayor Eva Galambos, and Sharon Crown, Director of Communications, and Mark Hall, Managing Broker of Atlanta Communities. During the break, the mayor requested that we point out what a great diversification of housing is available in Sandy Springs, and I don't know anybody more qualified to address that than Mark Hall.
Thanks, Lou. But as the mayor, when we talked about off-air, there is lots of housing available in Sandy Springs, single-family residences, townhomes, which seem to be getting a lot of attention these days, and condos as well. And part of the surge in townhomes and condos is an easier lifestyle, and you don't have to cut your own grass, etc. And that lends more time to enjoy all the community activities we've been hearing about that Sandy Springs offers.
It's a very important element to have a diversification.
Absolutely.
So, Mayor, we talked briefly about seniors and the growing segment, and I'm in that segment myself. What tell us a little bit about the senior center and how that is a attraction?
The senior center is probably one of the most notable senior centers in the whole Atlanta metropolitan area. Its membership is growing by leaps and bounds. It offers seniors a variety of entertainments, including a pool where they come and do exercises every day. That is very popular. Computer classes, discussion groups, calisthenics, you name it. They've got a special program for the seniors at the Dorothy Benson Senior Centers, and it's very, very popular.
So if you live in Sandy Springs and you're approaching retirement age, you don't have to move to Florida to have amenities like that. They're right here in your backyard.
Absolutely.
So we have a few minutes left, and we'd just like to turn the tables over to the mayor to talk a little bit about her vision for the future. She's been a key leader in the community for a long time and seen a lot of change and development. Where is there to go? How can we grow? How can we improve on perfection?
Well, one of the areas that deserves additional improvement is our downtown strip. And I have to call it a strip because it really is something that just grew out of the automobile-oriented society as people moved out of downtown Atlanta and came outside. Everything was oriented towards the automobile. So our downtown needs to be changed to become a vibrant commercial downtown so that people will congregate there and shop and have wonderful restaurants and be able to walk and see something interesting in the shop windows when you walk. What fun is it to walk next to a tire place? None at all. So that's our next big objective, is to transform what we call as our downtown. And we're also embarking on a big exercise to involve the entire community to do a master plan of a downtown area as to where we can redevelop and where we can improve our public facilities in downtown Sandy Springs. This will include a development of a city hall, and I'm hoping eventually this municipal complex might even serve some way of a performing arts center, because I think that if you can incorporate that into your municipal services, that's just another amenity that will draw attention and people will be using in your community.
Thank you, Mayor. And Mark, that should make your job a lot easier, I would think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Lou, I appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk about Atlanta communities and to be here with the mayor and the director of communication today.
And how can we reach you, Mark, if a person is interested in contacting you?
At Atlanta Communities, 770-240-2000, 770-240-2000.
Thank you, Mark. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. And Sharon, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your willingness to be on the show and talk a little bit about the organization. And Mayor, what a great honor to have you on the show. Appreciate your taking time to be with us.
My great pleasure being here, and I welcome everyone into our wonderful city of Sandy Springs.
And you're listening to Welcome to Atlanta, and be sure to go to the website, welcometoatlanta.net, to hear any segment that you missed or be able to listen, again, to the entire show without commercial interruption. Thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend from Welcome to Atlanta.